A very warm welcome to the most beautiful chess problems of all time, and today with a truly special problem. Let's have a look at it. It's not a problem that's going to show the most spectacular fireworks of combinations or any kind of piece sacrifices, but this problem is special for a different reason. In fact, it's probably the oldest surviving problem that we have here on the channel, or indeed that exists at all. As you can see, the problem is by Abu Nam from the year 1840, or around 1840. And the first special feature is that it's actually black to move, because the convention in chess studies that we know today, where it's always white to move, didn't exist back then, so here it's simply black's turn. And the second thing that's special is that the chess rules were also a bit different back then. More precisely, some pieces still had different ways of moving, or, for example, the queen, as we know her today, didn't exist back then. Back then, it was still the furs, or vizier, the king's bodyguard, who could only move one square diagonally. So, yes, it ultimately had a completely different function and was much less powerful. The bishop, as we know it, didn't exist in that form either. There was a piece that could always jump 2 squares diagonally, so in a way, a sort of weaker knight. And the pawn's double step didn't exist yet either, nor did en passant or castling. Now let's take a close look at this position here. We see neither a queen, nor a, furs, nor a bishop, and the pawns have already, moved forward. In other words, the pawn's double step isn't an option here either. In other words, we've got a puzzle from 1840 with different chess rules, but the position we see here doesn't involve any rule changes compared to our current knowledge of chess rules. That's why the puzzle can simply be solved as a normal puzzle. And I've been talking on and on for quite a while now. I'll keep it brief now. It's black to move. Black can checkmate in 3 moves, so pause the video now to try and find the solution yourself. You had the chance to pause the video, and well, now let's get closer to the solution. So if it's black to move here, we absolutely mustn't play any slow moves, because there's a threat. White could threaten mate pretty much immediately with either rook to a1 or rook to h1. Right? The black rook could still interpose here, but it would just be captured. In other words, there are mating threats from white on the board, and black has to play very precisely here to prevent these threats from ever materializing or becoming reality. So we need to find concrete moves, specific moves, checks and captures. I keep saying it over and over again. If we play knight to d5 here, giving check, then the pawn can just capture us, and we still have to keep finding concrete moves, otherwise there's simply a mate threat here. So yes, that would ultimately be our option. Rook takes on b3, the king takes the rook, and yes, we could throw in a desperate check here, but after rook to c8 at the latest, we probably have to admit that, well, nothing's going to work out here for the black pieces. And yes, now we've thrown away a lot of material for very little gain. Let's rather go back to the starting position and forget the whole thing. No, not quite. We've now realized that knight to d5, isn't it? But it's still all to be a check. There aren't that many checks left. Probably the most interesting try here is knight to a4, and that's also the correct move. So how does it continue now? White will probably think here, okay, a free knight, I'll just take that. And yes, what can black do now? If you haven't found it yet, then feel free to pause the video again now. You had the chance to pause the video, and the correct move here is actually rook takes b3. You sacrifice the exchange here again, and if white thinks king takes b3 is a really good idea, well, he has to do it, really. Of course, he has to get out a check, but now comes simply rook to d3, and it's actually checkmate with a king who, yes, is relatively central, but has still lost all his escape squares and ends up checkmated here. That was today's puzzle, and what I'd be interested to know is, I found a series of puzzles that ultimately deal with alternative or outdated chess rules. And here, this puzzle wasn't actually affected by the fact that the chess rules were different back then, at least not for today's solution. But there are also other puzzles where suddenly a Thurs appears or a bishop with different movement options, where it actually makes a difference. Would you be interested in something like that as well? Feel free to let me know in the comments, and otherwise, there's not much left for me to say except that on this side now, another video will appear. Feel free to click on it, and then I'll see you again in the next video.